This is not just another sunrise, it is the breath of heaven declaring over you, you can begin again. Not because everything is fixed or the sorrow has vanished, but because God is present. And where God is, newness breathes. You may have woken up carrying questions, regret, or the ache of what ended too soon. A door that closed, a chapter that didn't conclude the way you hoped. But even in that ache, God is already shaping what will be. Psalm 23 reminds us, He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness. That includes this moment, this step, even when it feels unfamiliar or undeserved. Maybe your heart still lingers in places where you once felt safe or known, and maybe your spirit feels like it's limping into this new season. But God does not wait for your strength to appear before He moves. He walks with you in the weakness. This is the holy space of becoming. Not hurried, not forced, just held. Sometimes we think starting over requires a roar of confidence, but often it begins with a whisper. What now, God? And He welcomes that question. He doesn't demand that you erase your grief. He simply invites you to release your grip. Isaiah 43 says, Behold, I am doing a new thing. Forgetting the former things is not about dismissing your pain. It's about making space for the miracle of new beginnings. D.D. Jakes teaches that sometimes your greatest faith isn't in holding on, but in letting go of what no longer carries grace. So, let yourself pause. Let your soul catch up with your body. There is a sacred stillness where you don't have to perform or produce. You just be. In that space, something shifts. Not ambition, but trust. Not clarity, but alignment. Dr. Anita Phillips reminds us that meditating on Scripture, truths like Psalm 91's protection or Psalm 23's leading, is not passive. It's powerful. This is where restoration begins, not with answers, but with presence. You don't need to leap into tomorrow. You don't need a 5-year plan. You just need the courage to stand in today. Pope Leo the Catholic once wrote, God does not require our certainty, only our consent. And that's what trust looks like. A sacred consent to be led even when you don't feel ready. God is not waiting for you to be fearless. He's simply asking for surrender. You are not too late. You are not behind. What looks like delay may actually be divine pacing. So breathe. Be still. Let the weight of performance fall away. Morning prayer isn't about proving your strength. It's about resting in His. This new beginning doesn't require perfection. It only requires permission. God's grace will meet you at every step, especially the ones you take trembling. And you will not walk alone. His presence goes before you, stands beside you, and lifts you when you hesitate. That is where miracles begin. In surrender, in stillness, in sacred trust. What part of your past is God gently inviting you to release this morning? How does it feel to let go of needing all the answers before taking the first step? Where might God's presence be whispering direction in your uncertainty? He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness. Psalm 23:3. Behold, I will do a new thing. Now it shall spring forth. Isaiah 43:19. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart. Proverbs 3:5. If this morning prayer met you in your weariness, let it also launch you into grace. Whisper your yes to God in the stillness. Journal one word that represents your new beginning, and if this blessed you, share it with someone who needs to be reminded. You are not too late. You are right on time. There's a sorrow that lingers not because something evil happened, but because something sacred ended without explanation. A door you once believed God opened now stands closed, and you're left questioning in the quiet. Was it me? Did I fail? Did God leave? These aren't rebellious questions. They're the cries of a heart bruised by unexpected endings. But hear this truth. Divine power does not vanish when doors close. It doesn't walk away. It waits. It refines. It anchors. Isaiah 41:10 promises, Fear not, for I am with thee. God never promised every opportunity would remain open. He promised His presence would never leave. That's not an idea, it's an anchor. When the noise of disappointment threatens to drown your peace, God's silence is not absence. It's preparation. Sometimes the door didn't close to punish you. It closed to protect what's next. Even when you feel abandoned, you are being aligned. You are not being punished. You are being positioned for what only surrendered hearts can carry. Trust is not forged in clarity. It's formed in confusion. When the answer is no, when the plan crumbles, when what you believed would last is suddenly gone, that is when trust becomes more than a word. It becomes a way. Dr. Anita Phillips reminds us that spiritual trauma often looks like disillusionment, not defiance. And that's what you might be feeling now. But this is not the collapse of your faith, it's the compost of your transformation. Compulsion. Psalm 91 says He will cover you with His feathers, and under His wings you will trust. That means even when you don't understand the why, you are still held in the who. Lisa Bevere teaches that God's windows don't always open around us, they open within us. So what if today's prayer is not God explain, but God expand me? What if the thing that ended is actually making space for the thing that will sustain you? The detour is not your destruction. It may be the divine path you never saw coming. This morning isn't asking you to fake peace. It's inviting you to find it, even in the ache. Meditation in this space is not about empty silence. It's about sacred surrender. You're not being asked to erase the grief. You're being asked to remember that grief isn't the whole story. Pope Leo XV once wrote that trust is most alive in the quiet. So if you're in a season of silence, it doesn't mean you've been forgotten. It might mean you're being focused. God is not pacing heaven trying to figure it out. He's preparing what's next. He's removing what cannot follow you into your promise. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. That's not weakness, it's wisdom. You don't have to make sense of everything to move forward. You just have to keep saying yes, even when it hurts. What door has recently closed that you still grieve? Can you see the possibility that God closed it out of protection or preparation? What does trusting God with that closed door look like today? Fear thou not, for I am with thee. Isaiah 41:10. He shall cover thee with his feathers, and under his wings shalt thou trust. Psalm 91:4. All things work together for good. Romans 8:28. Sit in stillness today and name the door that hurts to leave behind. Then release it to God with a sacred whisper. God, I trust what you're doing, even when I don't understand. If this prayer met you in your ache, share it with someone who's also grieving what could have been. Remind them, the story is not over. It's just being rewritten by the one who sees what's coming next. Letting go isn't always a decision. It's a sacred rhythm of release, remembrance, grief, and surrender. This morning, you may find yourself caught between the comfort of what was and the uncertainty of what will be. The past clings, not because you're failing, but because your heart loved fully, hoped deeply, trusted sincerely. When something meaningful ends, even when it had to, your soul feels unmoored. Your soul feels but God is not asking you to detach your humanity. He is inviting you into honesty. Psalm 23 says, He leadeth me beside still waters. Still waters don't force, they receive. In that quiet flow, God begins loosening what you've clenched too tightly, whispering, you don't have to carry this anymore. This is the gentle space where He joins you, not to rush the release, but to walk with you through it. Your pain is not a problem to fix. It's a place where God is present, healing you from the inside out. This is not about forgetting. It's about loosening your grip on outcomes you prayed for, timelines you trusted, identities formed around roles that have now shifted. T.D. Jakes reminds us that when God removes something, it's not to punish, it's to position. You are not abandoned, you are being redirected. Let that truth become your breath prayer today. God removes, but He never leaves. The ache is real, but it's not the end. It's the sacred middle. Psalm 91 promises refuge under His wings, not just in celebration, but in surrender. Even in the tearful silences, even in the wondering how to move forward, He is near. Meditation is not about effort, it's a homecoming, a space where you stop trying to perform and simply become the beloved child of God who is allowed to rest. Proverbs 3 calls you not to lean on your understanding, but on Him. Every breath you take is proof. You're still held. You're still here. And that means grace is still unfolding. Begin today with sacred stillness, not to erase the pain, but to let it rise, then release it, one moment at a time. Maybe it's a name, maybe it's a date, maybe it's a moment you keep revisiting in your mind. Let it come, let it be seen, and then let it be surrendered, not because you're ignoring the past, but because you're entrusting it to the one who redeems. Dr. Anita Phillips teaches that healing often begins in silence, not the absence of thought, but the presence of God. You don't have to get over it all at once. You don't need closure to choose freedom. Isaiah 43 reminds you, forget the former things. I am doing a new thing, not because what was didn't matter, but because what's coming carries divine purpose. Your tears are not wasted. They water the soil of what God is planting next. You are not behind, you are becoming. Every surrendered breath is a seed of transformation. What memory are you still holding that God is inviting you to release? How might God's word, meditated on daily, begin to soothe the ache inside you? What does giving yourself grace look like right now? He leadeth me beside the still waters. Psalm 23:2, under His wings shalt thou trust. Psalm 91:4, forget the former things, I am doing a new thing. Isaiah 43:18-19, take 5 quiet minutes today. No music, no pressure, just sit in stillness and breathe. Whisper this prayer into the silence. God, I release the weight of yesterday, and I trust You with today. And if this moment gave you breath, share it. Someone else is waiting for permission to begin again. There is a moment when grief begins to soften, not because the pain is gone, but because the presence of God grows louder than the confusion. And maybe this is that moment for you. You've mourned the endings, released what you could, and sat in the stillness of surrender. Now something sacred stirs within, a quiet whisper that says, I'm still working. This is God's message today. Not a demand, not a rebuke, but a gentle assurance. I still have a plan for you, even in the detour, even through the silence, even when nothing looks like what you expected. Psalm 23 says He leads you in paths of righteousness for His name's sake, not for your perfection, but for His purpose. That means His guidance is anchored in His goodness, not your performance. And even when the road feels hidden, heaven has not stopped moving beneath your feet. When everything feels paused, the enemy will try to convince you that God has stopped. But silence is not absence, stillness is not stagnation. As Pope Leo XV wrote, God's plans often take root in unseen places, like seeds buried before spring. What you cannot see is still being shaped. You are still being shaped. Philippians 1:6 declares that the one who began a good work in you will perform it until it's complete. That means this process, this waiting, this wilderness, it's not a void. It's divine construction. And construction zones are messy, but they are necessary. Let your prayer today shift from God, show me everything, to God, help me walk with You in this. Lisa Bevere reminds us that faith doesn't require full understanding. It requires full surrender. So choose surrender today, not because you know the outcome, but because you trust the one who holds it. This morning prayer is not about earning clarity, it's about receiving alignment. Ask for alignment with God's pace, not your pressure. Ask for alignment with His peace, not your anxiety. You don't need to see the whole staircase, just the next step, and that step may look small, but in God's hands, it's sacred. Psalm 91 says, you don't need to fear the unknown, because you're covered when the way forward seems hidden. Because you're covered when the way forward seems hidden, covered when hope feels fragile, covered when all you have is a mustard seed of belief that God is still with you. That covering isn't passive, it's protective, and it means that even now, divine power is still investing in your life, still forming what your eyes cannot yet see, still unfolding grace where the world sees only delay. If you've been wondering whether your moment has passed, whether your moment has disqualified you, whether your silence has meant separation, pause and receive this truth. God's message today isn't about what you missed, it's about what He's still making. He is not finished. His purpose is not fragile. His plan is not derailed by your delay. What He's building in you is holy, even if it's hidden. Let this be your grounding breath today. God still has a plan for me, not despite your story, but through it. Every surrender, every setback, every silent prayer has brought you here, and here is not too late. Here is right on time. Trust that what looks like delay is divine timing, and trust that this is not the end, it's a holy beginning. God, trust that this is not the end. It's a holy beginning. Where have you assumed God has stopped working because you can't see progress? What does it look like to trust that His plan continues even in silence? Can you shift from needing control to choosing alignment with God today? He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for His name's sake. Psalm 23:3. Being confident that He which hath begun a good work in you will perform it. Philippians 1:6. Thou shalt not be afraid for the pestilence that walketh in darkness. Psalm 91:5-6. Pause before rushing into today. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, then speak these words over your spirit. God still has a plan for me. Write it down. Whisper it in the car. Let it become the rhythm of your day. And if this truth settles your spirit, share it with someone else who's waiting in the silence. Remind them through your voice, it's not too late. God is still writing. There are mornings when your body rises, but your soul hesitates, still wrapped in yesterday's sorrow or today's uncertainty. If that's you right now, take heart. You are not too broken to be loved, not too afraid to be led, not too weary to be lifted. You are not behind. You are human, and your humanity doesn't disqualify you from God's love. It draws Him near. Psalm 91 says you are covered under His wings, not because you are covered under His wings, not because you are fragile. That covering is for the trembling, for the tearful, for the quietly hurting who dare to hope again. God's message today is not, be stronger. It's, let me carry you. Even in the mess, even in the fog, even when your prayer is simply, Lord, help, He hears it. He honors it, and He holds you in it. Maybe you've whispered, God, I'm scared to begin again. Maybe you've held your breath through sleepless nights and silent tears, wondering how much more your heart can take. Maybe you've tried to be strong for others while falling apart inside. But God sees, God stays, God saves. His power is not drawn to polish, it's drawn to honesty. Dr. Anita Phillips reminds us that healing begins with truth, and if the truth today is that you don't feel brave, that you're tired of hoping, that you're just trying to hold on, then bring that. Bring your raw, your undone, your in progress self. God is not ashamed of your struggle. He meets you in it. Isaiah 41:10 doesn't offer motivational fluff. It offers divine promise. Fear not, for I am with you. Not someday, not when you're better. Now, this is where healing begins, not with having it all together, but with letting God be enough where you feel undone. Let this be your sacred exhale, not a performance, not a perfect prayer, just breath and truth and surrender. You don't need all the answers. You don't need a 5-step plan. You need to remember that you are not walking through this alone. Psalm 23 says he walks with you through the valley, not around it, not above it, but with you. That means every fear, every question, every pause along the way is shared. He's not pacing on the other side of your healing, waiting for you to catch up. He's beside you, steadying your steps, silencing the lies, holding your heart. Meditation this morning isn't about escaping fear. It's about recognizing the presence of God in it. Lisa Bevere says courage isn't the absence of trembling, it's moving forward while still trembling. So tremble, cry, rest, and believe this. Grace is under your feet. The valley you're in is not your grave. It's sacred ground where faith is being formed. And now, in this holy hush, let us lift our hearts not only for ourselves, but for every soul in silent suffering, for the wounded in war zones, for the weary in their own homes, for the voices gone unheard, for the prayers buried in grief. Lord, we cry out for those afraid to speak, too tired to hope, too wounded to rise. Be their hiding place, be their healing. Be the light that cannot be snuffed out. Let your mercy cover what hatred has fractured. Let your justice rise where peace has been denied. You are not the God of distance. You are the God who draws near to the brokenhearted. Bind up what has been shattered. Wrap every trembling soul in your presence, and breathe new life where only fear has lived. Amen. This isn't just a morning prayer. It's a rescue, a lifeline, a holy interruption to fear's narrative. God's love is not waiting for you to be less afraid. It is already holding you in the fear. This is not your dead end. This is your beginning. You are wounded. You may be afraid, but you are not abandoned. Not now, not ever. Where do you still feel wounded or afraid to begin again? How does it change your view of healing to know that God stays with you in the fear? What would it look like to receive, not resist, His mercy this morning? He shall cover thee with His feathers. Psalm 91:4. Fear thou not, for I am with thee. Isaiah 41:10. Yea, though I walk through the valley, thou art with me. Psalm 23:4. If this prayer reached a tender place in your soul, write down one simple truth today. God, I am afraid, but I choose to trust you. Say it aloud. Let it echo through your spirit. And then share this prayer with someone else walking through the valley. Remind them, they are not forgotten. They are held. Sometimes we think restoration only begins once everything is calm, after the breakdown, after the tears dry, after the path is clear again. But what if restoration begins in the chaos, not after it? What if God's restoring presence isn't waiting at the finish line, but already moving now, in the confusion, in the silence, in this breath? Psalm 23 doesn't say He will restore, it says He restoreth, present tense. That means divine power is already at work, even if you don't feel it. God isn't asking for your perfection. He's asking for your permission to begin, right where you are, in the mess, in the questions, in the aching middle. He's not lost the map. He hasn't left your side. Restoration is not a return to the past. It's a deeper, better unfolding of your future, one shaped not by shame, but by grace. You may not see this shift yet. That's okay. Most restoration begins in silence. It begins in the moment you choose compassion instead of criticism, in the breath where anxiety loosens its grip, in the whisper where hope dares to rise again. These aren't small moments. They are sacred evidence that God is near. As Pope Leo Catechorus said, divine healing flows like water, quiet, patient, and powerful. It doesn't crash in with force. It reshapes gently, and even now, that shaping has started in you. Your path is not forgotten. It may look unfamiliar, but it's not lost. Even wilderness has direction when the shepherd is near. You may carry questions, wounds, fatigue, But none of that disqualifies you from the path ahead. In fact, God is using it all, not despite it, but through it. Meditation invites you to stop fixing and start receiving. It clears space in your spirit to hear what the noise of fear tries to drown out. God is here. God is restoring. God is enough. You don't have to push your way forward. You can be still and let healing unfold at God's pace. Lisa Bevere says true healing doesn't come from hiding pain, but by being held in it. So let this moment hold you. Let God's presence wrap around what's still hurt. You don't need the plan, you need the person. The one who restores souls. He isn't measuring your progress. He's honoring your surrender. And your surrender, right now, is enough. This is not about earning your way back. It's about remembering you never stopped being loved. Restoration means God hasn't forgotten where you were going. He's not just patching the pain. He's redirecting your purpose. Psalm 23 says he leads you in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. That means your journey is not just personal, it's sacred. Every delay, every detour, every disappointment can be rewritten when the author is still writing. Isaiah 58 promises he will guide you continually, not occasionally, not conditionally. And Psalm 91 reminds you that you are protected not because of what you've done, but because of who he is. So when the path feels unclear, when your feet hesitate, when fear whispers you're lost, respond with this truth. God is still leading, still restoring, still faithful. Where do you need God to restore your path today? What would it feel like to believe that he's already working on your behalf? How can you invite his restoration instead of rushing your own repair? He restoreth my soul, he leadeth me. Psalm 23:3. The Lord shall guide thee continually. Isaiah 58:11. He shall give his angels charge over thee. Isaiah 52 verse 11. Whisper this to your soul. God, I believe you are restoring me even now. Let it be your breath prayer every time fear or confusion returns. And if this message anchored you, send it to someone else standing in the fog. Tell them, you are not forgotten. Restoration has already begun. There is a kind of strength the world cannot explain. It doesn't roar or parade. It trembles and still trusts. This morning, if you woke up feeling worn out, broken, or barely holding on, know this: you are not disqualified. You are on sacred ground. Weakness is not the absence of faith. It is the very place where divine power moves. God's message today isn't, be stronger. It's, let me be strong in you. Psalm 91 says he delivers you, covers you, and sets you on high, not because of what you've achieved, but because you trust in his name. That trust, even if whispered through tears, is what he honors. You don't have to strive. You don't have to have it all together. You just have to be willing to say, Lord, I need you. Divine power doesn't rest on your performance. It rests on your surrender. Maybe last night you whispered, God, I don't know how much more I can take. Maybe your heart still aches from what hasn't changed, and yet here you are, still seeking, still listening, still breathing through the weight. That's not failure, that's sacred resilience. Lisa Bevere says strength often shows up not in movement but in stillness. Not in declarations, but in the soft cry of surrender. Maybe that's your offering today. Not control, but confession. Not bold plans, but a quiet, honest heart saying, help me. Psalm 23 doesn't promise you won't walk through valleys. It promises that he walks with you in them. You are not alone, not even in this heavy place. The God who stays is the God who strengthens, even when your hands are shaking and your prayers feel too weak to finish. Meditation today isn't about fixing yourself. It's about letting God in. Let the swirl of anxiety settle. Let the noise of expectation grow quiet. Let your soul remember this truth. Divine power is with you now, not when you get stronger, but in the moment you admit you're not. Dr. Anita Phillips reminds us that emotional vulnerability isn't weakness. It's the doorway to intimacy with God. So let this be your breath prayer. Your grace is sufficient for this moment. Say again when the fear rises. Whisper it when the tears return. There is no part of you too fragile for God to hold. He doesn't push you to prove yourself. He invites you to rest in Him. Right here, right now, even in this unraveling. Spiritual awakening doesn't always arrive with thunder. Sometimes it comes in the silence, when you surrender again in the middle of the mess, when you let yourself cry, when you say, I can't, but I trust you can. God meets you there. Not at the top of the mountain, but in the valley. Not in the aftermath, but in the ache. Proverbs 3 reminds us not to lean on our own understanding, which means it's okay not to have answers. It's okay to pause, to rest, to believe that healing can come in the stillness. You are not being punished by your weakness. You are being prepared through it. The power of God is not waiting for your perfection. It is already rising through your surrender. Where do you feel weakest this morning, and can you name it before God? How might divine power meet you if you stop trying to be strong alone? What would it look like to receive grace instead of resist weakness? My grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. 2 Corinthians 12:9. He shall call upon me, and I will answer him. Psalm 91:15. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Psalm 23:4. Place your hand on your heart and pray. God, I am weak, but you are strong. Let your power rise within me. Let that be your breath. And if this prayer gave you strength today, pass it on to someone who's barely holding on. Remind them, divine power lives in the valley too. There comes a moment in every believer's journey when the next step disappears into mystery. The plan no longer fits. The roadmap feels blank. You've prayed, waited, obeyed, and still the future looks like fog. But into that fog, God whispers with unwavering tenderness, trust me anyway. This isn't blind obedience, it's sacred surrender. Proverbs 3:5 doesn't ask you to understand the moment, it asks you to release it. Because wisdom isn't control, it's confidence in the one who sees the whole picture. Your understanding has limits, his doesn't. And even when the next step feels hidden, his presence never is. He is not just with you in clarity, he's guiding you through the haze with divine power that does not require visibility to move with perfect purpose. It's okay to feel afraid. It's okay to confess that you're tired of waiting. Even the most faithful saints had their trembling moments. But trust doesn't require certainty, it just requires willingness. Psalm 23 says he leads us in paths of righteousness. Not always obvious ones, not always comfortable ones, but always refining, always holy. Even the unexpected curves might not be detours, they may be the sacred shaping of your soul. Lisa Bevere reminds us that trust is built in the quiet yes, not the loud miracle. And maybe your quiet yes today is simply rising with more questions than answers and saying, God, I still choose you. That whisper becomes your compass. Meditation becomes the sacred space where the fog doesn't clear, but your heart steadies. You're not manufacturing direction, you're making space to receive it. Psalm 91 promises that God will command his angels concerning you, to guard you in all your ways, not just the clear ones, but the trembling, unseen, uncertain ones. Dr. Anita Phillips teaches that trust is less about strength and more about spiritual flexibility, the courage to loosen your grip and let grace hold you. So maybe today isn't about clarity, it's about courage. Courage to sit in the silence, courage to keep walking with soft faith, courage to say, I don't know, but I trust. Growth doesn't always look like progress. It often begins as surrender. Roots before fruit, stillness before the shift. But it is growth, and that means you're not stuck. You're being shaped for something sacred. The unknown is not a void, it's a holy invitation. It doesn't mean God has gone silent, It means He's doing something deeper than answers. Philippians 1:6 says He will complete what He began in you. That includes your healing, your purpose, your direction. You don't need to see the whole staircase, just the next step. Maybe that step is rest. Maybe it's a quiet prayer. Maybe it's a conversation. Whatever it is, it will come. Because God is not faithful sometimes, He is faithful always. Your trembling trust is not a flaw, it's fuel for communion. This is not the end of your story. It's the beginning of deeper intimacy, where faith becomes more than a plan, it becomes a person. And that person is Jesus, walking beside you now. What area of your life feels directionless or uncertain right now? What fears rise up when you can't see the next step? And can you name them before God? How might God be calling you to trust Him with small, quiet obedience today? Trust in the Lord with all thine heart. Proverbs 3:5, He shall give His angels charge over thee. Psalm 91:11, He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness. Psalm 23:3. Right now, place your hand on your chest and say aloud, God, I don't see the next step, but I trust you with it. Let that be your prayer today. And if it anchored your soul, share it with someone walking through the fog. Remind them, God is still leading, even here. There is a quiet miracle that unfolds when striving ceases, when your soul no longer clings to control and instead breathes out, Yes, Lord. That moment, so simple yet sacred, is where spiritual awakening begins, not in achievements or applause, but in surrender. The Spirit doesn't crash in with thunder. It arrives like morning dew, gentle, present, healing. Psalm 23 doesn't say He forces you forward, it says He leads you, and He only leads the surrendered. Surrender isn't weakness, it's release. It's not losing your worth, it's loosening the weight. Divine power doesn't require your perfection. It meets you exactly where your guard falls and your heart opens. This is the holy paradox. The less you hold, the more you're held. And that holding, that divine embrace, is what awakens the Spirit within you. Maybe you've run out of strength. Maybe your soul is sore from expectations unmet and prayers unanswered. But this, right here, is holy ground. Lisa Bevere reminds us that God doesn't need your polish, He wants your participation. That means your offering today doesn't have to be clarity. It can be the courage to let go. It can be your trembling yes in the face of the unknown. And in that yes, meditation becomes sacred agreement. Meditation becomes a sacred agreement. Not a ritual, but a resting. Not about clearing your mind, but opening your heart. Not performance, but posture. Dr. Anita Phillips teaches that emotional release is often the doorway to revelation. So cry if you need to. Breathe deeper than the fear. Psalm 91 promises shelter, not in your strength, but in His wings. That promise remains even when your confidence doesn't. You don't need to be fearless to be faithful. You don't need a breakthrough to be beloved. You don't need a plan to be protected. You need only to surrender. In surrender, divine power doesn't just bring peace, it brings alignment. It doesn't just calm your storms, it reshapes your soul. When you let go of control, you are not erased, you are unveiled. The version of you before striving, before pressure, before fear, that version begins to surface, and God, who began the good work in you, is still working. Philippians 1:6 makes that promise. He is not behind schedule, you are not late. Stillness isn't a setback, it's soil. It's where your soul is softened, nourished, prepared. Nothing is wasted when surrender is the posture. So if today all you have is a sigh, let it be your song. If staying still is the only step you can take, let it be your act of worship. You are not defeated. You are being delivered. This is not the end of your strength, it's the beginning of your freedom. The Spirit awakens not through pressure, but permission. And in that holy permission you are free, not because the weight is gone, but because it's no longer yours to carry. Let go. not because it's easy, but because He is trustworthy. Not because you've failed, but because He's faithful. You are not surrendering in weakness. You are surrendering into the arms of the One who makes all things new. What area of your life are you still trying to control that God is asking you to surrender? How does it feel to believe that surrender is a doorway, not a dead end? What small act of surrender can you offer God today? He that dwelleth in the secret place shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. Psalm 91:1. He leadeth me beside the still waters. Psalm 23:2. Being confident that He which hath begun a good work in you will perform it. Philippians 1:6. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and whisper, Lord, I surrender. Awaken your spirit in me today. Say it again and again until peace returns. Then send this prayer to someone weary from trying to hold it all together. Let them know they don't have to be stronger. They just have to let go. There is a lie that creeps in when the world moves faster than your healing. The lie that says you're behind, disqualified, forgotten. It echoes through comparison, regret, and delay, but God's voice breaks through that noise with quiet authority. You are not too late. You are right on time in me. Divine power does not measure your journey against anyone else's. It doesn't demand speed, it honors surrender. Psalm 23 begins not with urgency, but with reassurance. The Lord is my shepherd. Not past tense, not future, present. That means your now is holy. Your waiting is not wasted. God is not behind schedule with your life. He is preparing something deeper than your understanding. And even if your steps have been slow, even if your courage comes with trembling, the shepherd is still leading. You may feel like others moved on while you stayed in the same place, rebuilding, relearning, still wondering. But Philippians 1:6 reminds us that He who began a good work in you will complete it. That includes the long seasons, the quiet chapters, the hidden growth. Dr. Anita Phillips teaches that healing isn't linear, it's layered. Sometimes what you saw as delay was actually your development. And now the Spirit is awakening readiness within you, not because you finally figured it all out, but because you're finally saying, Yes, Lord. Lisa Bevere reminds us that God isn't in a hurry, but He's never late. Morning prayer isn't about catching up, it's about realigning. It's where your heart returns to the truth that God's pace is perfect. Psalm 91 declares that you are covered, not when you're fast, but because you trust. That trust is your holy rhythm today. Let your soul rest in this. Divine power is not activated by performance. It flows through permission. When you stop striving to catch up, you create space for God to lift you forward. Meditation isn't about doing, it's about being. Let it become your sanctuary this morning. Let it remind you that shame is not your compass. God is. He doesn't need you to move mountains today. He just invites you to move with Him. A single step, a whispered prayer, a deep breath that says, I still believe. You are not running out of time. You are being refined within it. The calling on your life is still alive, still valid, still unfolding. Not in spite of the delay, but often because of it. So rise today not in panic, but in peace. Not with the burden to make up for lost time, but with the boldness to say, I'm here and I trust you. The miracle didn't pass you. The moment is not gone. You're not late. You're aligned. The Spirit goes before you, beside you, within you. Let that awareness still your racing thoughts and anchor your wandering heart. And as you move through this day, carry this truth with quiet confidence. God's timing is not just good, it's perfect. And that means you are exactly where grace is meeting you. What lie about timing have you been believing that God is now replacing with truth? How does it feel to know that divine power is not bound by your timeline? What is one step you can take today in faith, not fear? The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Psalm 23:1. He which hath begun a good work in you will perform it. Philippians 1:6, thou shalt not be afraid for the arrow that flieth by day. Psalm 91:5, speak this truth aloud right now. I am not too late. I am right on time in God's plan. Then write down one thing you've been avoiding because of fear or shame, and take one faithful step toward it today. Share this with someone who needs to hear. God hasn't forgotten. The timing is His. The invitation is now. The what-ifs love to arrive early, before your feet touch the floor, before your heart finds stillness. What if I fail again? What if I'm not ready? What if today breaks me? They rise like fog, clouding your mind and putting your soul on trial. But this morning, grace answers first. You are not on trial. You are under my wings. God's voice does not accuse, it invites. He does not ask you to prove your worth. He reminds you of it. You don't have to fix everything today. You don't need a full plan. What you need is presence, stillness that anchors you in truth. Psalm 23 promises He leads you beside still waters, not storms. And those waters are available right now, even with all the noise inside. You are not failing because you're afraid. You are being formed in faith. Meditation is more than calming down. It is your sacred refusal to let fear narrate the day. God's message is not a list of solutions, it's an embrace. Psalm 91 says you are covered under His feathers, safe in refuge, not strategy. He's not waiting for you to conquer every doubt. He's sitting with you inside them. T.D. Jakes reminds us that anxiety often wears the mask of preparation, but trust doesn't always look like a plan. It often looks like surrender, the kind that says, I don't need to know what's ahead. I just need to know you're with me, and He is. Divine power is not thrown off by your questions. He already walked the road you're afraid to start. He already made provision for the moments you're dreading. Your job is not to anticipate the storm. It's to stay close to the shepherd who calms it. This morning, let your breath become your prayer. Inhale, God is here. Exhale, I am safe. That rhythm quiets the courtroom in your mind. Lisa Bevere says your thoughts are not dictators. They're passengers. You get to choose who drives today. Let peace take the wheel. Let meditation become your declaration of war against the lies that shout, you're not enough. Say instead, even if it's hard, God is with me. Even if I don't understand, I am still led. Even if it takes time, I will not be left behind. That's not empty hope, it's spiritual clarity. And clarity always comes in the quiet. Let yourself trust without having to troubleshoot. Let yourself feel without needing to fix. Philippians 1:6 declares that He who began a good work in you will complete it. That means your progress is not measured by how calm you feel, but by how consistently you return to the truth. You are not your panic. You are not your what-ifs. You are a child of God, covered, guided, loved. So let the lies rise and then let them fall in the presence of the one who says, I am is with you. That is enough. Begin today with this whispered vow. I release the what-ifs. I trust the even-ifs. My peace is in God, not in predictions. What are the loudest what-ifs in your heart right now? How might God be inviting you to trust instead of troubleshoot? What does it look like to choose peace over planning this morning? He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. Psalm 23:2, under His wings shalt thou trust. Psalm 91:4, being confident of this very thing. Philippians 1:6, begin today with this whispered vow. I release the what-ifs. I trust the even-ifs. My peace is in God, not in predictions. Let it guide your pauses, your decisions, and your prayers. Then share this message with someone still tangled in anxiety. Let your calm become their invitation to breathe again. There's a kind of ache that settles quietly, not born of tragedy, but of waiting. You've done what you could. You've prayed, obeyed, believed, and yet the breakthrough hasn't come. The door remains closed. The silence stretches longer, and still God whispers, "Stay with me." This is not punishment, it's preparation. Psalm 23 says he leads you, not rushes. His pace is not random, it is holy. Every delay is divine ground, where roots grow deeper than you can see and character forms in ways you wouldn't choose but desperately need. This stretch of time isn't empty, it's sacred. The work of God hasn't stopped, it's just gone underground, strengthening what must endure before the visible change arrives. Silence doesn't mean absence, it's often God sharpening your hearing, shifting your sight. You don't see progress, but Philippians 1:6 assures you, the good work God began, he will complete, not on your schedule, but in his perfect kairos timing. Pope Leo XIV once called it the delay that saves, the pause that protects, sanctifies, prepares. Divine power is never late, it's never in a hurry. It moves with wisdom, not worry. Lisa Bevere says impatience is often fear in disguise, the fear that God has forgotten, that others have passed you by. But fear is a lie, and divine power doesn't measure worth by speed. Psalm 91 reminds you that you need not fear the terror by night nor the arrows by day. That includes the arrows of delay, the whisper of your falling behind. Meditation becomes your holy defiance, your quiet rebellion against panic. It doesn't remove the weight, it transforms it into worship. Dr. Anita Phillips teaches that emotional maturity is trusting God even when your emotions lag behind. That kind of trust isn't passive, it's powerful. It stands in the silence and still says, "I trust you even here." Not because everything makes sense, but because God is still present. He's not punishing you, he's preparing you. He's removing what can't stay, refining what must remain. What feels like delay is really development. What feels like rejection is actually revelation being readied. This morning prayer is not a bargain, it's a banner. You are not behind, you are in process, and the God who shaped the stars is shaping you through this stretch of stillness. So rise today, not in haste but in hope, not in dread but in dignity. Let peace steady your step, knowing your time is not lost, it's being orchestrated. When God opens the door, it won't creak, it will burst open with fulfillment. Not because you forced it, but because you were faithful. Divine power has not forgotten you. Heaven hasn't moved on without you. And when it's time, your time, nothing will stop what God has prepared. No fear, no voice, no failure. Until then, walk steady, breathe deeply, wait with fire in your soul and softness in your spirit. The delay is not denial, it's the making of something holy. What area of your life feels delayed right now, and how does that affect your faith? How can you shift from frustration to formation in this waiting season? What would it look like to trust God's pace more than your plans? He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Psalm 23:3, he shall cover thee with his feathers. Psalm 91:4, he which hath begun a good work in you will perform it. Philippians 1:6, say this aloud today. God's timing is perfect. I will wait in peace, not panic. Let it calm your breath. Let it hold your heart. And if this anchored you, send it to someone who's still waiting in the quiet. Let them know the delay holds a deeper promise. There is a kind of pressure that doesn't shout. It whispers and tightens, creeping into your thoughts and coiling around your chest. You should be farther by now. You should have figured it out. You should be doing more. And without noticing, your soul begins sprinting through sacred ground, trying to earn what God already gave freely, peace. But this morning, God offers a holy interruption. My peace is greater than your pressure. Before the emails arrive, before your mind starts to race, hear him say, be still. I am enough, and so are you. Psalm 23 opens not with activity, but with rest. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. Not hustle, not performance. Lie down, be still. Let grace carry what your striving cannot. Divine power isn't released through pressure, It flows through surrender. You weren't designed to do it all. You were designed to dwell. That is not laziness, it's obedience. And it's your invitation today. You've been carrying invisible weights, expectations, deadlines, fears of falling behind, and it's left your soul tangled and tired. But pressure is not your master. Peace is your portion. Jakes reminds us that while pressure may come before the promise, it was never meant to crush you. Diamonds are formed under pressure, but they're not rushed. And you are not being rushed. You are being refined. Psalm 91 says, "He that dwelleth in the secret place, not visits, dwells." God doesn't ask you to sprint through the sacred. He invites you to stay, abide, exhale. His covering is not thin or temporary. It is steady, safe, sheltering. This is where strength returns, where truth is louder than timelines, and where your heart remembers. You are not what you do. You are who God says you are. Chosen, beloved, held. Let meditation today be your act of sacred defiance against performance. It's not indulgent, it's essential. It's how you untangle your soul from the lie that your worth depends on your productivity. Dr. Anita Phillips says rest is the resistance to a world that idolizes busyness. So rest, not as a reward, but as a right. Inhale grace, exhale guilt. Let the Spirit speak louder than the world. You are already enough. You are already mine. Lisa Bevere reminds us that peace isn't the absence of chaos. It's the presence of God within it. So even if your circumstances remain intense, your inner posture can shift. You can slow down without falling behind. You can let go without losing ground. Philippians 4:7 promises that the peace of God will guard your heart and mind, not once you've accomplished everything, but right now, in the middle of it all. So this morning, don't perform your way into the day. Pray your way in. Breathe your way in. Walk into it with a spirit anchored, not anxious. Let His peace meet you where pressure used to live. When the world shouts for more, let your soul whisper back, God's peace is my portion today. Not as denial, but as divine truth. You're not falling behind. You're learning a new rhythm, one rooted in trust, not tension. One led by presence, not pressure. And that choice isn't just self-care, it's worship. It's the way peace wins. What pressure has been quietly stealing your peace? How might God be inviting you to rest in Him, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually? What would it look like to approach today from peace, not performance? He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. Psalm 23:2. He that dwelleth in the secret place shall abide under the shadow. Psalm 91:1. The peace of God shall keep your hearts and minds. Philippians 4:7. Take 3 slow, deep breaths and whisper this with each one. Inhale, God, your peace. Exhale, is enough for me today. Let that rhythm become your refuge, and if it softens something tight within you, share it with someone carrying silent weight. Let them know peace isn't a reward you earn. It's the presence you were made for. We often search for God in the fire and thunder, in breakthroughs that shift the atmosphere, in signs that silence doubt. But what if He's already speaking in what we dismiss as insignificant? The smile you gave while your heart was breaking, the whispered prayer you barely had the strength to finish, the forgiveness you extended in silence. These are not lost on God. They are seen. And this morning, His message is full of tender clarity. I see you, not just the polished version of you, but the real one, the one who keeps going when it would be easier to give up. Psalm 23 tells us that He prepares a table in the presence of your enemies. That means He doesn't wait until you're safe or celebrated. He honors you right where it still hurts, right in the presence of pressure, right in the middle of what's trying to steal your peace. He sees not just your outcomes, but your effort, not just your strength, but your surrender. This is where God does his deepest work, not always in the miraculous, but in the mundane, in the way you show up when you feel invisible, in the early mornings, the silent prayers, the hidden obedience. Psalm 91 reminds us that he gives his angels charge over you in all your ways, not just the big leaps of faith, but the quiet daily faithfulness that no one claps for. Divine power doesn't just dwell in pulpits or platforms. It rests on the ones who wash dishes with love, who comfort without applause, who keep loving and serving even when it's hard. Meditation opens your eyes to this sacred truth. You are not overlooked. You are being written into God's story in ways more profound than you can see. Every unnoticed act becomes holy when offered in faith. You don't have to strive to impress heaven, you just have to be present. And God meets you there. Dr. Anita Phillips teaches that healing begins when we believe we matter to God, not because of what we accomplish, but because of who we are. Lisa Bevere reminds us that identity comes before assignment. You are not what you do, you are His. You're not just a worker in the kingdom, you're a child in the Father's house. And that identity stabilizes you when life feels slow or small, because there is no such thing as small in the eyes of heaven. The act of rising again today is sacred. The moment you choose love instead of indifference is recorded in eternity. Philippians 1:6 says that what God began in you, He will complete, not based on visibility, but based on His promise. Every yes you give, no matter how quiet, builds something eternal. That's how spiritual awakening begins, not in noise, but in knowing you are seen. So pause here and place your hand over your heart. Whisper it slowly. God sees me. Let that truth move from your head into your soul. Let it change how you walk into today, not striving for approval, but resting in identity. Smile again, serve again, love again, not because you're noticed, but because you're known. Not because it's easy, but because it's eternal. You are not forgotten. You are faithfully watched over by a God who delights in your small yes, and if this reminder reached a quiet place in your spirit, let it settle. Then pass it on. Someone else is wondering if their quiet faithfulness matters. Tell them, it absolutely does. You may not have all the answers, but you're not supposed to. What you do have is a beginning. A holy stirring, a whisper in your spirit that something sacred is shifting. And yes, that can feel fragile. You've started before, you've believed before, and maybe you've been met with disappointment. So now you hesitate. You wonder if your heart can bear another letdown. But this beginning is different. Not because it's easier, but because God is leading it. Psalm 23 says, He leadeth me. Not drags, not demands, leads. That means He's already gone ahead. He's not behind you waiting for you to figure it out. He is before you, guiding with gentleness. This is not a recycled hope. It's a divine invitation, one where you're not asked to be fearless, just faithful. Where God says, you don't have to understand to obey. You just have to trust that I am good. This whole episode, and you can, not because you've seen the whole path, but because you've seen who He is. This is a shepherd-led beginning, one where pressure yields to peace, where control surrenders to presence. You don't have to manufacture strength, just bring your willingness. God is not asking for a blueprint, He's asking for a yes. Philippians 1:6 reminds you that He who began a good work will perform it, not might, will. You don't need to carry the whole process. You simply need to trust the one who does. He never starts what He won't finish. Meditation becomes the quiet space where trust is formed, not in the absence of fear, but in the presence of God. Psalm 91 tells us, you're under His feathers, sheltered as you step into the unknown, not exposed, not alone, covered. And that covering isn't conditional, it's constant. Even if your hands shake, even if your voice trembles, the invitation remains, begin with me. Dr. Anita Phillips teaches that trauma often leaves us bracing for disappointment, even when something good begins. But God's beginnings are not designed to break you, they're designed to build you. Your past pain doesn't make this step more dangerous, it makes it more sacred, because it takes courage to believe again, to try again, to open your heart to newness after it's been shattered. And yet, here you are, Ling. That willingness is your offering, and it's holy. Lisa Bevere reminds us that we don't wait until we're perfect to say yes. We say yes in the middle of becoming. Proverbs 3:6 says, "In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths." That doesn't require clarity, just surrender. Just the courage to say, "God, I trust you here," and he will lead. Not just vaguely, but personally. He will make your path straight. So today, begin again, not with certainty about what's next, but with confidence in the one who goes before you. Let this be your morning prayer. God, I trust you with this beginning. Let it be the rhythm of your steps, the anchor of your hope, the banner over your day. You're not late, you're not behind, you're not forgotten. You are exactly where he's called you to be, on sacred ground in a holy beginning, led by a faithful shepherd who sees the whole road and walks every step with you. Let trust replace hesitation. Let faith speak louder than fear, because this time you're not walking alone. You never were. There is a sacred grief that comes when you realize life hasn't unfolded the way you once hoped. Dreams have shifted, plans have unraveled, relationships have changed, and somewhere in the quiet, you're left holding the pieces of a future that will never be. That ache is holy. Don't rush past it. God doesn't shame you for mourning what could have been. He meets you there. His message today isn't harsh, it's healing. Let go, not because it didn't matter, but because I'm doing something better. Isaiah 43:18 reminds us to forget the former things, not because they were meaningless, but because something new is being born, something sacred, something shaped by his hands. But your hands must be free to receive it. Letting go doesn't mean pretending you're fine. It means trusting that even in loss, God is still writing a story worth living. And maybe the version you imagined is not the one that heals you, but the one he's creating will. Psalm 23 reminds us that God leads us through the valleys, not around them. Letting go is not giving up. It's faith in motion. It's saying, God, I release what I cannot change and receive what you are doing now. And even if that surrender feels like breaking, it's actually building. Dr. Anita Phillips teaches that emotional honesty is the beginning of spiritual transformation. So name what you hoped for, grieve what you thought would happen, and in the stillness, hand it over. That's what meditation is. It's not escapism, it's encounter. It's the sacred exchange between pain and peace, between what was and what is. And in that space, God whispers, I still have more for you. Maybe not what you planned, but more of what you need. T.D. Jakes says God won't bless who you pretend to be. He blesses the real you, the one with tears in your eyes and questions in your heart. You don't have to perform healing. You don't have to fake wholeness. Let this morning be your permission to feel it all, to exhale, to cry if you need to. Psalm 91 says, you're under his wings. That includes the aching version of you, the uncertain version, the one still clinging to what no longer fits. And still, God holds you. Lisa Bevere reminds us that grace doesn't just restore, it redefines. When you let go of what you outgrew, you make space for what was always yours. That's not failure, it's freedom. A sacred reset, a deeper trust to let go, not because it didn't matter, but because God is doing something better. Release the timelines, the old expectations, the should-haves and almosts, and receive what is, a God who restores, a path still unfolding, and a future marked not by loss, but by love. Let Psalm 23 lead you gently. Let Psalm 91 cover you completely. And let Philippians 1:6 remind you, He's not finished. This is not the end of your story. It's the turning of the page, one you don't have to write alone. Let go and rise with what's next, because what's next is holy. Sometimes new beginnings don't arrive with celebration. They come through silence, through slow mornings where your heart feels heavy, through long nights when prayers feel unanswered. They don't always feel like breakthroughs. They feel like barely holding on. But that doesn't mean they aren't holy. If you are still breathing, still trying, still whispering, "God, help me," then you are walking in divine power, not because you feel strong, but because you haven't quit. God's message to you today is simple and steady. It's okay if it hurts. I'm still here. Psalm 23 doesn't promise we avoid the valley. It promises He walks through it with us, and walking slowly is still walking. Progress doesn't have to be loud to be real. The slowness is not punishment, it's formation. T.D. Jakes reminds us that God often hides progress inside of pain. The stillness you fear might be the soil where trust is growing. The silence might be the space where roots deepen. Maybe you feel stuck, but you are actually being shaped. Lisa Bevere says, "We live in a microwave culture, but we serve a slow roasting God, one who builds trust slowly, one who values formation over speed." Healing that lasts isn't rushed. It's layered, gentle, steady, and in that slow unfolding, your faith is becoming unshakable. You may not see it, but it's there, in the way you keep showing up, in the way you don't give up, in the tears you pray through. You are becoming something eternal, and heaven sees it all. Psalm 91 says, "He shall cover thee, under His wings shalt thou trust." That is for the weary soul, the aching heart, the one who's tired of pretending everything's okay. You don't need to fake strength. You don't need to force a smile. This slowness is your sanctuary. Let it be enough. Sit in silence and let God meet you there. He's not exhausted by your emotions. He's not distant from your doubt. He collects every sigh, every tear, every groan too deep for words. Dr. Anita Phillips teaches that emotional honesty is the doorway to spiritual breakthrough. So, if all you can say is, "God, I don't know what to do," that's enough. That's trust. That's worship. So today, let this be your anchor. God, I'm still here. I trust you even through tears. That prayer is not a last resort. It's a declaration of faith. You don't need to feel strong to be faithful. Your obedience in the middle of fog is shaping something unshakable. Philippians 1:6 says, "He who began a good work will finish it." Not might, will. This slow restart is still a restart. It's sacred. It's real. And even when your steps are small, heaven sees every single one. You are not alone in this slowness. You are not behind. You are becoming, right on time. And your slow yes still echoes in eternity. There's a strange fear that comes when you're finally ready to move forward. You've prayed for a new beginning, you've waited, and now the door is opening. But instead of excitement, you feel exposed, vulnerable, uncertain. What if you make the wrong move? What if it falls apart again? What if God isn't really in this next step? But here's the truth: God wants you to carry into the unknown. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow you. That's not a maybe. That's a promise. Psalm 23 doesn't say mercy follows the perfect. It says it follows you. In your fear, in your hesitation, in your stumbling steps of trust. Divine power does not wait for you to be fearless. It walks beside you, even when you tremble. Mercy is not the backup plan, it's the plan. It's not what meets you after the journey. It's what walks with you during it. It is the very presence of God's faithfulness catching you when you trip, covering you when you question, and whispering, "Keep going, I've got you," when fear tries to speak louder than faith. Mercy changes how you move. It gives you permission to begin even when you don't feel ready. Lisa Bevere teaches that God's mercy doesn't run out when you make a mistake. It runs after you to restore, redeem, and renew. That's the kind of love you're being led by. Not one that demands perfection, but one that meets you in process. Psalm 91 assures you that angels are assigned to your journey, not just to the mountaintops, but to the messy middle, to the places where your confidence wavers and your direction feels unclear. Meditation becomes your refuge in these moments, a place to breathe deep and say with boldness, "Surely goodness and mercy follow me." Say it until your fear loosens its grip. Say it until peace becomes louder than doubt. Even if you misstep, mercy will be your safety net. Even if the way forward looks unfamiliar, you are not unprotected. You are covered. Dr. Anita Phillips reminds us that our fear of the unknown often comes from a fear of being alone in it. But God's mercy is not sending you out, it's going with you. His presence is ahead of you, His mercy is behind you, and His angels surround you. You are not being pushed into the unknown, you are being guided through it. Divine power doesn't eliminate all uncertainty, it just assures you that you will never walk through it unaccompanied. T.D. Jakes says that when you step into your God-given assignment, all of heaven aligns behind you. That alignment does not require flawless execution, it requires trust. And trust is enough. Trust lets you walk forward even if you're still trembling. So today, rise. Not because you know the whole path, but because you know who walks it with you. Say aloud, "I am not alone. Mercy follows me." Let that truth ground you in courage. Let it be the anthem that quiets your fear and steadies your next step. You don't need a perfect plan to move forward. You just need to believe that mercy is in motion, that it surrounds your going out and your coming in, that no step is too uncertain for grace. This is how you begin again, with mercy on your side and heaven at your back. Sometimes the most surprising thing about starting again is realizing how much you've already survived. You look back and see battles that should have broken you, but didn't. Nights that should have drowned your faith, but didn't. Words that should have silenced your calling, but didn't. And now, as you stand at another beginning, it's not just about what lies ahead. It's about honoring the strength God has already formed in you. A quiet strength, a hidden strength, a holy strength. You are not weak because you've wept. You are strong because you've kept walking. Psalm 91 says, "He shall cover thee. His truth shall be thy shield and buckler." His word is not just protection, it's your proof. That survival, that resilience, that's the evidence of divine power at work. You didn't get here by accident. You were carried, aided, held, strengthened in silence. D.D. Jakes teaches that true strength is revealed not in success, but in struggle. You didn't choose the storm, but you found your endurance in it. You didn't want the heartbreak, but you met your courage through it. And that strength is your seed. You don't need to feel strong to be strong. You already are. Psalm 23 reminds you, "Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me." You are protected and equipped. God hasn't just walked beside you, He's been forming you, fortifying you, preparing you for more than survival. Lisa Bevere says that strength is rooted not in who you are, but in whose you are. You belong to the one who never fails. That belonging silences fear. It steadies your spirit when the pressure says you're not ready, but you are. Not because you've mastered everything, but because God has trained your soul through the fire and the shadows. Dr. Anita Phillips reminds us that emotional strength isn't the absence of pain. It's the ability to feel deeply and still rise. You've cried and kept going. You've questioned and still believed. That is sacred strength. It's time to stop apologizing for your story. Your scars aren't shame, they're survival. They're the altars of moments God proved His faithfulness again and again. Meditation today becomes a space of remembrance. Breathe slowly. Let the memories surface, not to stir regret, but to recall every time God held you, every time you wanted to quit but didn't, every quiet yes that no one saw, but heaven never missed. That's where your strength is anchored, not in hype, but in holy resolve. So rise today not with fear but with fire, not with doubt but with dignity. Say aloud, God has already made me strong enough for this. Let that truth echo louder than insecurity. Let it guide your steps when the path feels uncertain. Philippians 1:6 declares that the work God began in you is not a fluke. It's divine and it's still unfolding. Your strength is not just survival, it's calling, it's legacy, and it's already within you, placed there by the God who never wastes a single tear. So move forward, not because you feel ready, but because you are already equipped. Keep walking, keep believing, keep becoming. You are not weak, you are a warrior in the making, and heaven sees it all. There's a lie the enemy loves to whisper when things fall apart. It's too late. Your story is over. Maybe you've heard it after the divorce, after the failure, after the job loss, after the prayer that didn't get answered the way you hoped. But here's the holy truth breaking through that lie this morning. God is not done with you, not even close. You are not standing in the ashes of the end, you are standing in the ink of a new chapter. Divine power doesn't just give second chances, it rewrites with redemptive grace. Psalm 23 says, "He restoreth my soul." Not just heals, restores. That means He brings back what you thought was lost and gives it new life. You may feel like the plot of your life no longer makes sense, but sometimes God must interrupt the script we wrote to make room for the masterpiece He's creating. You are not lost. You're being rewritten by the one who knows the ending before the beginning. You are not lost. You're being rewritten by the one who knows the ending before the beginning. T.D. Jakes reminds us that some of the greatest testimonies begin in the rubble. If your life feels deconstructed, take heart. God does His best work in the rebuild. Psalm 91 doesn't promise an escape from hardship. It promises protection within it. He shall give His angels charge over thee. That includes this moment, this chapter, this unknown. Dr. Anita Phillips teaches that restoration doesn't erase your past. It reframes it. What once felt like shame becomes your testimony. What once marked you now anoints you. Your tears were never wasted. Your delays were not denials. Everything, yes, even the broken parts, can be rewritten by the hand of grace. Meditation becomes an act of holy courage today. Sit in the silence. Let the grief rise if it must, but then speak this aloud over every ache. God is still writing. My story is not done. Lisa Bevere reminds us that God's redemption is not partial, it's complete. That means no failure, no wound, no detour is too far gone for His pen. He writes in mercy, He edits in compassion, He turns ruined pages into sacred ones. This isn't just healing, it's holy rewriting. The pages you thought were discarded are becoming chapters of purpose. Yes, you are being made new. Not because you've performed perfectly, but because God is that good. Philippians 1:6 declares that He who began a good work in you will carry it through to completion. And completion doesn't mean flawlessness. It means fullness, wholeness. The kind of story that points back to His goodness, even when life doesn't make sense. So today, rise, not with regret, but with reverence for the God who never puts down the pen. You are not wandering. You are walking with the author. Every prayer, every small act of forgiveness, every time you choose to keep showing up, you are letting Him write again. Say aloud, my story is still unfolding, and God writes the best endings. Let that become your breath prayer. Let it silence shame. Let it anchor hope. Your story is not over. It's just getting holy. And every word from here forward, It's covered in grace. You've made it here not by accident, not by sheer will, but by grace, through the fear, through the delay, through the heartbreak and silence and stillness. You've arrived at this holy morning, where God leans in and speaks, not with thunder, but with clarity. Begin again, not as a rebuke, but as an invitation. This isn't about retrying in your own strength. It's about trusting Him enough to take the next step, even if you're still trembling. Psalm 23 says, "Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life." That means today too, this day, this uncertain, beautiful, sacred beginning. Mercy is here. Divine power is here. You are not alone. You are not behind. You are not disqualified. You are simply being asked to trust that this moment is still holy, still held, still full of possibility. You are being led forward, not forced, not driven, led, and the one leading you already sees the fullness of what this day will become. Maybe the past has been heavy. Maybe you've failed more times than you can count. Maybe the morning light feels almost cruel, shining on dreams that haven't yet come to life. But Psalm 91 says you dwell under the shadow of the Almighty. That's not just protection from danger, it's comfort in uncertainty. You are covered while you step forward. You are not launching into the unknown You are anchored in love. You are sent by peace. And God's message today is not vague. It is precise. It's time. Not time to be perfect. Not time to impress. It's time to begin again. In faith, in trust, in Him. T.D. Jakes says that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is take the next breath and try again. And that's what you're doing now. Just by showing up in prayer, just by choosing meditation over anxiety, you're aligning your spirit with heaven's rhythm. Your yes, however quiet, is enough for God to move. Lisa Bevere reminds us that beginnings are sacred, not because they're perfect, but because they're honest. And there is no moment more honest than this, standing at the edge of the unknown and deciding to trust again. Divine power doesn't require certainty, only willingness. That trembling yes, heaven calls it holy, and Dr. Anita Phillips teaches that healing often looks like gentle movement, not dramatic gestures, but sacred steps. Maybe that looks like opening your Bible again, or letting someone back in, or forgiving what still hurts. Whatever it looks like for you, the Spirit will lead, the Shepherd will guide, and mercy will follow. Philippians 1:6 is not just comfort, it's your promise. He who began a good work in you will complete it. That means He's not done, not with the work, not with you, and your willingness to trust Him again today is the evidence that hope still lives in you. What does it mean for you personally to begin again with God today? What are you being invited to release so that you can move forward in peace? How will you remember this moment as sacred, not small? Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. He that dwelleth in the secret place shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. He which hath begun a good work in you will perform it. Speak this blessing over yourself aloud. This is my beginning again. God is with me. I walk forward in trust and share this final word with someone who's been afraid to start again. Remind them, it's not too late, it's right on time. And God is still writing